This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Psst, healthcare pros, word's out, and it's too good to keep quiet. Look, LinkedIn is revolutionizing job hunting, making it possible to search by specialty, shift preference, and salary. Endless scrolling is out. Whether it's a mental health therapist or dental hygienist, finding the perfect role is faster and easier than ever. Head to linkedin.com/healthcare and start your search today.
When I wake up, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who wakes up next to you. When I go out, yeah, I know I'm gonna be the man who goes along with you. If I get drunk.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Knoxville, Tennessee is the destination this weekend, and it's Oklahoma heading to Neyland Stadium to take on Tennessee. If there's one theme that defines this matchup, if there's one thing that's going to dictate whether Oklahoma walks out with the win or they take a long plane ride back to Norman, I think it's this: control the clock, control the crowd, control the game. That's just one of the few things I want to talk to you in regards of Oklahoma and Tennessee. Let's jump into it with the Sooner Nation podcast. Now, here's what we know about Tennessee. The Volunteers thrive on chaos. They thrive on quick plays, rapid possessions, riding momentum like a tidal wave in that stadium, which is one of the most fascinating. It's a bucket list stadium for any college football fan, or at least it should be. If you let the Volunteers dictate pace, it snowballs so fast. So I think for Oklahoma going here to play, the path is pretty clear. I think you've got to run the football, dictate the tempo, and take the air out of that stadium. Now, obviously, I know exactly what I'm saying going into Oklahoma's 9th game of the season. When you're saying run the football, yeah, that's a good idea, but definitely with this squad, something that's easier said than done. And you're going up against a Tennessee defense that's given up 135.3 rushing yards per game. So the Vols aren't necessarily a brick wall, but it is, I do believe they're a defense that can be moved if you're committed, there's my good English, if you're committed to physical football. And that's, to me, that's exactly what Oklahoma has started to show the last two games, and 100% what the Sooners have to do on Saturday evening. Let's talk about why this matters. Running the football does three things for Oklahoma, and might I add three crucial things for Oklahoma. Number one, it allows them to control the tempo. Every successful run, every first down, every just 4-yard gain that sets you up on 2nd and 6, it shortens this game. It reduces the number of possessions that Tennessee gets, and it keeps their offense on the sideline, and it keeps your defense resting. So if you want to cut power on a tempo team, what do you have to do? You got to unplug their snaps. Running the football lets you do that. Number two, it helps you protect John Mateer. I know the jury's out. I know for many people, I had a conversation just today. John Mateer, for many people, not the quarterback that was advertised. And some of it I've said so many times. It's his first year playing at this level of college football. I think you see him take growing, leaping steps, and I think you see him take regressions. Doesn't necessarily help the cause that he had surgery on his throwing hand a month ago. But when you go into Neyland Stadium and you, whether your quarterback is John Mateer or whether your quarterback is Dan Marino, if you go into that stadium at a night game with looking for rhythm passing, drop back, every other play type script, I think you're asking for trouble. A strong run game, what it does is it gives you clean pockets for your quarterback. It gives you manageable downs. It keeps you ahead of the chains. And then he also gives you play action opportunities instead of having to look at hero ball type situations, and that's obviously what you want to avoid. Number 3, I think, and this is huge, is that if you run the ball, you silence the stadium. You take Tennessee's crowd out by just grinding the clock and finishing long drives. What Oklahoma needs are sustained, methodical, those type of drives that frustrate a hostile crowd, because that's what you want to do more than anything else. And a run-first approach, what it does is it forces Tennessee to commit bodies to the box. And when they do that, then your play action to like Isaiah Sategna or whoever, it becomes lethal. And that's how you flip the script and make them react to you instead of the other way around. And if you're looking for a bit of good news, I think Oklahoma is trending up in the running game. You got Tory Blaylock with 101 yards 2 weeks ago against South Carolina. You got Xavier Robinson, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns last week against Ole Miss. So you've got back-to-back 100-yard rushing performances for Oklahoma. And I don't know that that's a coincidence as much it is an identity that's beginning to form. And even Ben Arbuckle said earlier this week, there's a lot of stuff to build on. It all just comes down to a mindset and a certain physicality that you have to have. That's not scheme talk, that's culture talk. And we've talked about identity and culture so much. But it's an emphasis on finishing blocks, finishing runs, forcing your will on a defense. And I think John Mateer even echoed this. He said they're working real hard up front. And he's talking about the offensive line, and it starts there. He says they've had 2 great weeks of practices. So you can see a little bit of vision, a little bit of identity, a little bit of confidence rising out of that side of the football. But the question becomes now is, can Oklahoma take that physicality on the road to one of the loudest venues in all of college football? So let's talk plan here. Let's talk a real plan. Because I do think there's a clear blueprint. Now, they've never asked me to be a consultant, but I feel like if Seth Luttrell can do it, maybe I have a shot. I don't know. But you got to start downhill. I mean, your first 2 or 3 drives, establish, in my opinion, inside zone, establish power, establish lead runs. You want to make Tennessee defend the full width of that box, and you want them to earn the right to rush the pass. You don't want them just to come out and set you behind the chains. You want them to earn that, and so you make them defend every inch of the box. And I think personnel matters. When you look at Xavier Robinson, he was the hero last week. He gives you that violent, punishing style. He can break arm tackles. He can kind of impose an attitude. And then, thunder and lightning with Tory Blaylock, he brings that speed and that burst. And especially when you're trying to get to the edges or get into space. And if you rotate them, what you're doing is you're forcing Tennessee to adjust to 2 very different styles of running. And then I think you use heavy looks, a couple of double tight end looks. We've seen that. We've seen Jaron Kennett kind of drop back in the H-back, fullback type position. Use both of them. What if you put both Blaylock and Robinson on the field at the same time? Force Tennessee to bring bigger packages themselves onto the field. And then here's a wrinkle. Mix the pace. Don't just slow the game down. Control the tempo. Sometimes you go long and you do those dragging, wear everyone down where you're leaning on the defense type drives, and then boom, one series you hit them with your own tempo package after a big run or when they're kind of winded and trying to sub out. And that's how you own the rhythm instead of reacting to the rhythm of the game. When the run is rolling, that's when you dial up play action. Isaiah Sategna on a seam, Burks, on a deep pass. Make those safeties pay for stepping down into the box. And if Tennessee starts over pursuing, then you can go to traps, you can go to counters, you can do stretches outside, and then you can even hit screens. But, it's chess. it's just, chess play with shoulder pads. But I think this is a big moment for Ben Arbuckle because we saw him outcoached at the Cotton Bowl against Texas. We saw him outcoached in the first half against Ole Miss. This is a moment where he can come in and say, I've learned, I'm adjusting, and bam, give us a game plan that better suits the skill set of the offense. And I think there's going to be key situational moments that we're going to want to look for. I mean, there are phases of this game. For example, 3rd and short. I want to see him run the ball successfully. Don't get cute. Make them feel your physicality on 3rd down. Red zone, same thing. Physicality over finesse. Give me some touchdowns. Work at it. Wear them down. And at the end of the halves, I want to go back to that 4th quarter drive against Michigan, that 4th quarter drive against Auburn. Limit possessions that they get, but stay efficient with the possessions that you get. We may not like it said this way, but this is a game where boring plays win. 3 yards here, 4 yards there. Stay on schedule, finish those drives. And Arbuckle talked about, look, they're finishing, right? They're practicing finishing. So what does that practice turn out to in the form of actual game footage? I think you want to see the offensive line hit the defensive line, not the other way around. You want to see them finishing drives all the way to the whistle. I think you want to see your running backs finishing through contact. I think you want to see inside drill emphasis. You want to see guard center combos, kind of climbing out to that second level into the linebackers. And live tempo. I mean, those reps, they prepare you for, what they're doing in practice, I think prepares you for what Tennessee is going to bring. But they need to be they need to be the aggressors here. And I think, I know we're talking offense, but let me just throw just one little caveat in here. Special teams has to be clean. This is a game where field position matters. When you're talking about ball control football, where you start really matters. So things like punt protection, return decisions, all of it. It's that hidden yardage that stacks up when you're trying to grind out, a game. So who are we keeping an eye on this offense? I think your running backs are your 2 biggest guys. Those are the 2 players you want to see have success. And even if they don't break, 100 yards, let's say Robinson goes for 70, Blaylock goes for 85, 90. That's a good day. And you use Robinson as that tone setter. He gets rolling early. That's a great sign. You use Blaylock for a change of pace, the guy who has the burst, or reverse them. I don't care. But the success here is going to be on the offensive line. They did some things very well, particularly in that 3rd quarter against Ole Miss. But they need to start that in the 1st quarter against Tennessee. And I think for John Mateer, this isn't about throwing 40 times. I think it's about making smart decisions. It's about making quick reads, seeing the entire field, and then punishing Tennessee when they bite on play action. But what if it doesn't work, right? What if Tennessee stops the run? Because we know with this team, with this program, and this sport, things don't always go perfectly. In fact, rarely do they go perfectly. So what if Tennessee starts out loading the box? That's okay. Loosen them up. Hit those quick game, those quick game passes, the outs, the hitches, the bubbles. Then use counters, use draws, use screens to back them off. And what you want to do is what you want with your goal, if you're Ben Arbuckle, you want 3rd and manageable. What you don't want is 3rd and forever. So things like, pre-snap penalties. Dang, right? Think back to that safety against Ole Miss last week. Pre-snap penalties, illegal formations, holding, all those things that set you back, you want to avoid. With that, avoid the special teams hiccups. This offense, it needs to simplify, it needs to settle, It needs to get their running game back on track. They don't need to panic. They need to play to their identity. And I think there are some metrics here that are going to matter. We're going to know early on if Oklahoma is on script. Watch out for these 4 things right here. What is Oklahoma's average per carry? It's got to be better than 4.5. They've got to have better than 4.5 yards per carry. If they do, that's a huge advantage to the Sooners. Time of possession. What do they get in the first half? It's got to be 16 plus minutes. 16 plus minutes in the opening half. If that's the case, then what you see is that OU is dictating the tempo of this game. Third down conversions. They got to be better than 45%. If Oklahoma is better at 45%, better than 45%, that means that the drives are stacking, that they're establishing themselves and they're sustaining long drives. And then you want those explosive runs. You want those chunk plays. If Oklahoma is able to do that, especially those chunk plays, that spells a long day for Tennessee. Now, if you flip those stats, right? If you flip those and all those things go towards Tennessee, then that means they get the game they want. It's going to be fast. It's going to be frantic. It's going to be like a track meet. And obviously, I mean, if you're Oklahoma, you desperately want to avoid that situation. This game is not about trickery. It's not about style points. I'm going to keep with the theme of identity. That's what this game is about. If Oklahoma can run the ball, if they can protect the ball, they don't just stay in this game. They have the chance to control it. If Tennessee wants to win, you got to make them do it left-handed. Make them play our game. Make them play your style of football. Because when the Sooners commit to physicality, when they lean into that line, they trust the backs, they force the issue. I don't think they just like move the chains in that situation. They take souls. They leave a wake of bodies. So I think let's watch those first 3 possessions. Let's watch those first 3 drives. They're going to tell us. They're going to tell us everything. Can Oklahoma control the clock? Can Oklahoma control the crowd? Can Oklahoma control the game? So let's use this second segment and let's talk about something really simple, but also defining for Oklahoma as they head to Knoxville. If Oklahoma protects the football, if Oklahoma refuses to give up explosive plays, they can beat Tennessee. They can win this game. Now, if they don't do those 2 things, they're not going to win. That's the ball game. That's the margin. And honestly, I think when we're talking about blueprints for this game, that might be the blueprint for the next month of Oklahoma's season. Let me break this down. Let's talk about it in a way that's not just real but digestible, okay? Because it's not just coach speak about execution or fundamentals. This is about understanding how Tennessee wins games and how Oklahoma loses games. How Brent Venables and his squad, how they can flip that script Saturday night in Knoxville. I said it in the opening segment. Tennessee thrives on chaos. They don't need 14-play drives. They don't want 14-play drives. What they want, they want one blown coverage for a 60 yards. They want one missed tackle that becomes a touchdown. They want a tipped ball that becomes a turnover. They want a special teams mistake that flips the field. That's what they want. They live off of momentum spikes. And at Neyland Stadium, especially at night, those spikes turn into earthquakes. So for Oklahoma, it's not about playing perfect football. It's about reducing your vitality. You don't have to dominate every snap if you're the Sooners. You don't. That's not a realistic expectation. But what you cannot do is you cannot give Tennessee short fields. You cannot give Tennessee cheap points. You cannot give Tennessee sudden change opportunities like turnovers and so forth. Because if you do, the Vols are going to explode. And once they explode, that avalanche just hits. And there's an identity test. So again, we've talked about identity so much this month. But here it is. This is the test. Can you show gap integrity on the defensive side of the ball? Can you show physical pursuit? Can you show smart leverage in your blocking and even shedding blocks? Can you show team tackling? Can you show discipline? Discipline has been something that they've not shown consistently in conference play. But if they do that, if they do those five things, then what you do is you force your opponent to earn every single yard. And we've seen on the other side of the ball, when OU loses those principles on offense, especially where scrambling quarterbacks are involved, I mean, look, when safety is over pursued defensively, when explosive plays creep in, we saw it against, with the opposing offense last week against Ole Miss. A handful of plays changed the game for Oklahoma. That's the razor's edge Oklahoma lives on right now. The defense doesn't need to be perfect, but it needs to be controlled, it needs to be detailed, and it needs to be consistent. Because you're playing a team in Tennessee that's not very patient. Remember, they don't want the long drive. They want the express lane. And OU has to make them, if we're going to use that analogy, Oklahoma has to make them sit in traffic. Now let's flip over to the offense for a second. Because the easiest way to lose in Neyland Stadium is to turn the football over. It's not rocket science. It's emotional physics. Look, one fumble, stadium erupts. One interception, stadium erupts. A muffed punt, stadium erupts. Ask Ole Miss how that feels. And once Tennessee gets humming emotionally, the game changes. So we said the defensive checklist just a second ago. How about the offensive checklist? Ball security is the most important thing. Give me ball security over flash 10 out of 10 times. It's okay for a fair catch. No strips, no tip drill interceptions, no hero ball. Do not give this Tennessee offense bonus possessions. John Mateer, I don't think he needs to be Superman. I don't think we want him to be Superman. We saw what happens when he tries to take that route against Texas. What we need him to be is steady. And just like you're going to try to make Tennessee earn every inch offensively, defensively, make them earn the stops. Don't give it to them. Make them defend long, sustained drives. Make them line up against your offensive front again and again and just pound them. That's how you quiet the road crowd. That's how you remove Tennessee's superpower of 100,000 fans. And if we're going to come back to practical football, I think here's the stuff that we can literally watch snap for snap to see if it's going Oklahoma's way. Are there free releases? Is there broken leverage? What I mean by that is this defense works when defenders stay square, inside out. And Tennessee knows how to eat leverage mistakes. Don't give them to them. Don't give them that opportunity. Are we finishing tackles? Don't just arrive to the ball. That doesn't really matter. If the ball carry keeps going, bring them down with contact. Rush with control. Right? If you have one gritty stunt, it opens up a runway to daylight. We saw that last week with Chambliss. How many of his yards came when he broke containment and got into that second level? Set the edge, compress the pocket. Don't chase sacks. Chase containment here. And play field position. I mean, just play for field position. If the return lane's not there, it's okay. Fair catch. Live to fight another day. And I'm going to keep emphasizing this. Take the air out of the clock. 8 play drives, man, those are gold. 8+ play drives, those are your best friends. And even if it ends in a punt or a field goal, it has eaten up time, and that's a hidden value. So who's going to decide this game? I think if Oklahoma wins, it's going to be because of these position groups. I think it's going to be because of the linebackers who key in on reads, they secure tackles, they do quarterback containment, no false steps along the way. I think it's going to be on the safeties, clean angles, no hero ball. Keep everything in front of you. In other words, don't go for something that's not there and leave a guy open behind you. Edge defenders, guys like R. Mason Thomas, guys like Marvin Jones Jr., set the edge like it's life or death because, it basically is. And then their return unit. I don't mean to keep harping on this, but don't lose this game on special teams. Secure the ball. That's the very first thing you do. And then you return secondly. If it's not there, don't take it. This isn't really about highlight plays anymore for Oklahoma. It's about limiting disaster plays. And then there are, once again, some critical stats to monitor here. Watch out for these. Explosive plays allowed. I think if you're Oklahoma, you want to limit Tennessee's explosive. I don't think you're going to erase their explosive plays. But I think you limit them to 3 or less. I think you got to be +1 or better on the turnover margin. And we talked about time of possession in the first half. I think for the game, you double that. You've got to be over 32 minutes in time of possession if you're Oklahoma. What about the drive length for Tennessee? Are they getting long drives or short drives? Long drives are good for Oklahoma. And then, again, mention that field position again. Don't give them short fields. And there's 5 things right there. If Oklahoma cracks these or checks these boxes, they're right there. They have a chance in the fourth quarter to win this game. They have a chance to steal a massive road win within the conference. But you don't beat Tennessee by playing their game. You beat them by making them play yours. And so this weekend in Knoxville, not about fireworks. It's about maturity. It's about patience. It's about poise and detail and finishing plays. If Oklahoma can remove the chaos from this game, if they can take the crowd out, they can take the tempo out, and that what they're doing is they're taking Tennessee's strength away from them. Prevent the flash. Make them grind. Force them to grind. And in doing that, you might just walk out of Knoxville with the kind of win that defines you and puts you back in the hunt. This is the opportunity for Oklahoma to send the message they're not going away. That from week to week, they're growing more disciplined. They're growing more physical. They're becoming tougher. And now they're built to win road games. You already got one in Columbia. How about picking up another one in Knoxville? Hey, this is the part of the podcast where I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. If you like the content we're putting here, please don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to drop a rating. Don't forget to share this episode with your Oklahoma friends and family out there who are just as ardent about being a part of the Sooner Nation as you are. Let's talk about one more thing before I end up giving you my score prediction for this game. I got one more thing I think we want to ask ourselves about this football program in Knoxville on Saturday night. Can Oklahoma stay composed? Can they remain disciplined, and can they be surgical in one of the most hostile environments across the country? Because when you strip away the hype, you take away the rankings, you take away the matchups, the talent, I think this game comes down to leadership and execution. That's where Oklahoma is going to fail or succeed. This is a stadium that has swallowed elite teams in the past. It's a stadium that has rattled quarterbacks, it's derailed communication, and it's turned small mistakes into those avalanche-type moments I talked about earlier. And if you're not prepared, if your heartbeat rises with the crowd instead of staying steady, it becomes a long night. It becomes a long night very rapidly. So I want to talk about how Oklahoma handles chaos, how the leaders keep the team locked in. What signs do we need to watch to see if the Sooners are kind of built for this moment or if they still need to work on it? Let's first start by acknowledging the stage here. Neyland Stadium, it's not just loud. It is coordinated chaos. This crowd feels like it's sitting on top of you. The sound doesn't rise. It presses down on you. Your cadence changes, your communication tightens, and suddenly, like a routine snap feels like you're in a minefield. So you things that commonly happen here with opponents are false starts, delay of games, missed assignments, forced snaps, emotional penalties. They're all there. And this is a stadium that, again, it's made veteran teams look like freshmen. And that's why this isn't just a game about talent. It's not just about scheme. It's really not even about matchups as much as it's about composure, clarity, and leadership. Because great teams don't panic and noise. They think their way through it. So then that begs the question, is this Oklahoma team ready to handle this type of road chaos? And the answer is we're about to find out, right? But let's talk about what the leadership actually looks like in this setting. We're not talking about just like that raw energy, but we're talking about real-time, game-defining action. Here's what Oklahoma's team captains, here's what the leaders and the coaches and the players, what they have to deliver. Controlled breathing means controlled emotions. Yeah, I know that sounds simple. It may even sound like, I'm asking you to jump into yoga or whatever, but in hostile stadiums, panic starts with breath. Veterans settle their teammates. They slow the movement. They quiet the noise internally, even when it is deafening externally. Controlled breathing controls your emotions. Simplified communication, silent counts, hand signals, eye contact. Practice communication, not improvisation, but practice communication. A road environment exposes teams that talk a lot instead of teams that communicate well. How about this? Load down with discipline. Just load it and then lead with it. There's no need to do a lot of trash talking after plays. There's no need to get frustration flags. There's no need for late hits. No mental lapses, particularly on third and short. Leaders of this team, the captains on the field, they are the thermostat. They're not the thermometer. They don't gauge the temperature. They set the temperature. And they certainly don't have to react to it. Give me some third down clarity. Great leaders, they shrink the moment. They don't inflate it. Neyland Stadium has a way to bait you into hero ball because you want to silence that crowd. But keep in mind, championship football, it's not about finishing this. It is about finishing the simple things. And then last, I think, emotional control after big moments. Tennessee is going to get their shots in. They're going to land them. It's Neyland Stadium. It's the Vols. It's what they do. But when they do it, leadership keeps everybody steady. Body language is going to matter. Sideline demeanor is going to matter. The response is going to matter more than that moment. And that's going to be leadership you can see. That's going to be leadership that you can feel instantly. And you want to talk about execution. I mean, if Oklahoma wants to silence that crowd, we've talked about it. Here's how you do it. You run the ball. And you run the ball early. Crowds feed on incomplete passes. Crowds feed on tackles behind the line of scrimmage. Crowds feed on punts. They feed on big hits. But you know what? They die on 6-minute drives full of body blows. If the offensive line shows up and does its job, everything else opens. How about some perfect snap discipline? Silent cadence, trust the center, clean protection calls. You win this game one snap at a time. We've talked about manageable third downs. You want 3rd and 2. Run some power football. But if you're facing 39, be smart. Punt if you have to. Don't gift momentum to them. And something that we've always talked about every week is that turnover mentality. No turnovers. Bad decisions get multiplied on the road. Protect the football. And if you protect the football, you protect the game flow. And remember, it's not about flash. It's about control. Now, when you're talking about the defensive side of the ball, was something we've said already. Make Tennessee earn every inch. Again, crowds ride momentum. Explosive plays light that fuse. Oklahoma's defense has to keep contained. They got to force everything inside. You want to make Tennessee stack plays, not steal them. You got to tackle clean. This is an environment and this is a team where missed tackles become 6 points. Communication, I know I've talked about it and I've said communication multiple times, but tempo would test discipline. And veteran communication wins in those battles. There's going to be pressure, and pressure is great, but chaos is not. You win this game by not chasing that highlight moment. So if Oklahoma can avoid that hero ball as well, if they can force long drives instead of just trading explosive plays, if they can work to control the tempo, then you silence the crowd. And I think there are micro battles that decide these things. That the game flow oftentimes swings on micro moments, like that third and short when you can run power football, the red zone finish versus field goals. Touchdowns travel. Field goals don't always hold up on the road. They don't really kind of help you protect the lead in loud stadiums. And to keep harping, special teams, ball security. You want fair catches. You want lane integrity. You want no muff kicks. And you want to know who's going to win this game, you watch those type of moments. There are tells, I think, in the first quarter that, again, were things we're looking at. Are there clean pre-snap operations going on? Do they look organized or do they look rattled? Is there early third down success? Can they convert early? Can they control the tempo? Are they silencing the crowd? And then the penalty count, man. If the flags pile up, eight penalties last week against Ole Miss. If the flags pile up, guess what? The crowd's going to as well. You give me a false start, that crowd does not get quieter. But if they can not rack up penalties, Oklahoma's going to be in command. And those three things right there, again, is going to be something to tell you where Oklahoma's going at halftime. Here's something, though. I think something sneaky that people might forget. Belief travels. Oklahoma believes they can go in and win this game. They believe they can go in and they can execute. And confidence is contagious. That if you could be calm and confident, it spreads throughout the team. So if Oklahoma's voice leaders, those guys that are captains, if they radiate confidence, their teammates are going to mirror that. This is a culture test. This is a maturity test. This is a test to see where this program is. I mean, honestly, this is what joining the SEC is all about. These games, they either grow you or they expose you. So here's the bottom line. Neyland Stadium is going to roar. It's going to hit you in waves. It's going to test every ounce of maturity that you have on your team. But championship teams, they don't conquer noise. They operate inside of it. And if Oklahoma can do the little things, the boring things, the disciplined things, then leadership carries the day and the Sooners walk out with a statement win. But if they get rattled, then they're going to get swallowed by momentum. They're going to get swallowed by confidence. Their game plan will fall apart. So again, watch the first three drives. Watch the body language. Watch the third downs. Watch the penalties. That's going to tell you whether Oklahoma's ready to thrive or whether they're just fighting for survival, trying to catch a breath of air. So there it is. That's our breakdown. I've got a score prediction coming up for you. Just remember, leadership is what wins noisy games. What are we predicting the Sooners to do? Well, I'll be right back and tell you. So I think you've got a strength-on-strength matchup happening here in Knoxville on Saturday night. I think this really is. We're staring straight at a true playoff elimination game. You got 2-loss Oklahoma. You got 2-loss Tennessee. You got a national stage. You got primetime lights. Neyland Stadium at night is just like, this is where dreams go to die, right? Or it's where championship hopes sharpen or shatter, I guess you could say. And I think this is as good as it gets in terms of football within this conference. You got an elite top-tier offense in Tennessee. You got an elite top-tier defense in Oklahoma. Strength on strength, identity on identity. I mean, this game doesn't need any more hype than that right there. This game sells itself. And let's be clear on what the stakes are here. This isn't, quote, big game energy. This isn't circle the calendar type moment. This is honestly just survive in advance. If you lose this game for either side, the playoff dream is not just wounded, it is gone. It is buried. You just start looking at bowl dates, Where do you want to go where you try to salvage whoever you can in the transfer portal, because that's where you're heading. You're heading to the Citrus Bowl or Alamo Bowl or Freedom Bowl, or I don't know. They all have a new name these days, right? But that's why this thing feels different. Because if you win, man, legit, if you win this game, Tennessee or Oklahoma, you're still in the playoff conversation. And that's why the tension is real. That's why both teams are about to play football with a type of January urgency here in Knoxville. And most models, most analysts seem to be leaning towards Tennessee here. Not by a lot, but by enough to say, Oklahoma is less likely to cover. I think right now, I'm recording this on Thursday night, the Sooners are a 2.5-point underdog. And let me tell you why that is. First, you're playing at Neyland Stadium at night, okay? Home field matters, and Neyland Stadium, it's not any type of home field. It is a living, breathing force of nature. Tennessee's 25-2 in its last 27 home games. At night, right? The stadium turns into a wall of orange noise. I mean, look, we talked about the snap counts. We talked about communication problems. We talked about the emotional snowballs. And if you're not built for chaos, this exposes you very fast. I think the second reason you look at Tennessee being a favorite here is that their offense, it's a problem. Now, the Sooners, they come into this game with an elite defense. There's no question about that. And they've earned that reputation. But what do we see happen last week? They saw a fast, explosive offense in Ole Miss. They saw tempo. They saw spacing. They saw pressure. And they gave up 34 points. And now they're facing an offense that's statistically better. They have a faster tempo. They have more balance. And they have more explosiveness. And they're going to face this team on the road in a stadium that feels like it's just about to fall on top of you. And at night. If Tennessee gets into rhythm early, Oklahoma's going to be playing from behind, both emotionally and physically. And then you got the third thing, I think, why Tennessee is a favorite here, is there are concerns for Oklahoma's offense. Oklahoma doesn't need to score 50 points to win this game, but they do need to control the clock. They do need to limit Tennessee's possessions, and they need to hit high percentage plays. And that's what they have to do. They have to do those things. And you're looking at a Sooner offense that the run game hasn't consistently been there. The offense has not been explosive. And since John Mateer's surgery, this unit, it feels limited. It feels hesitant. Against average defenses, against South Carolina, you can survive that. Against Auburn, well, Mateer wasn't injured, but I guess he did get injured in that game. You can survive that. But you're playing a Tennessee team on the road. You can't crawl your way to 30 points. You have to attack. And what Oklahoma needs to do to win this game is the things we've talked about. They've got to flip the script on the Vols. They got to run the game. They don't need to dominate. The run game needs to exist. They need to avoid that Neyland avalanche we've talked about. That one bad series, that one turnover, that false start sequence at midfield that pushes everything off kilter. Those momentum swings here, they don't come back your way very easily. And you got to limit explosive plays if you're the defense. You want to give up field goals, not touchdowns. You want to force them to be patient. And in doing that, you're forcing them to be frustrated. So if Oklahoma turns this into a possession game, they've got a shot. So, here it is. I've thought about it. I've weighed it. I've gone through my own personal score prediction model, which is anything close, anything but being close to 100% correct. But for the first time this season, I'm picking Oklahoma to lose this game. And it's one of those moments where, again, you just hope you're wrong, but I've got Tennessee 31, Oklahoma 27. I've got to be in close. I've got to be in competitive. I certainly don't have the Sooners losing a blowout. And I think it's a game where Oklahoma fights. I think it's a game where they kind of show who they are becoming. But this is Tennessee's environment. I think their offense is just going to be a little bit too much for Oklahoma. This is it. This is what you signed up for. This is the SEC on the road at night. Welcome to it. Because this is what we said. Games like this, they don't just test your roster. They test your culture. They test your leadership. They test your ability to stay composed when 100,000 people want your season to burn. I just can't confidently pick the Sooners. But I want to be wrong, because if Oklahoma wins this, it becomes a season-defining moment that kind of affirms who this program is, and like I said earlier, keeps them in the playoff conversation. But if it goes the way I expect it to, you get that margin between good and elite. It just kind of gets underlined a little bit more. The Sooners are good. They're not elite yet. And so we're going to see which version of this team shows up Saturday night. So here we go. Grab your popcorn, take a breath. Let's get ready because I think this is going to be a fun game. I think it's going to be like a postseason game before we hit December. I think it could even be a game that comes down to which team has a ball in their hand last. It's going to be fun. It's going to be enjoyable. Regardless of what happens, we'll talk about it. Catch us online, heartland-sports.com. Find us on Facebook. Our community is growing. Over 15,000 Facebook followers. Find us on Instagram. We want to hear from you. We want you to have an amazing weekend. Enjoy the football. Hopefully we get to come back Sunday and talk about how wrong I was. That's my desire. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. See you soon.
I'm gonna be the man who's working hard for you.